Okay. Parsha Devarim. We are beginning the book of Devarim, the last book of the Torah. All right. And Devarim, what is Devarim? It starts off, these are the words, Ele ha-Devarim asher diber Moshe el kol Israel. These are the words that Moshe spoke to all of Israel. So just before I go into what I'm really going to talk about, Devarim, what is Devarim? Devarim is different than the other four books. Devarim is a repetition of the four books. Devarim is also introduced in a different way than the other four books. We see in the other four books Hashem always talking to Moshe, and Hashem said to Moshe, and Hashem spoke to Moshe. Here we see Moshe speaks, and Moshe is repeating all of the Torah. Christians know it as Deuteronomy, which I think is Latin for second law. We call it the Mishnah Torah. For those that don't believe in oral Torah, they already have a problem, because Devarim is Torah Shel Peh. It is oral Torah. You know, there's over 200 new mitzvot in the book of Devarim that aren't in the other four books. But Devarim is only a repetition of the four books. So how did these new mitzvot enter into the book of Devarim? Doesn't the Torah say, one second here. Doesn't the Torah say that, one second here, guys. Doesn't the Torah say that you shall not add or subtract? You shall not add or subtract to the Torah. So what is Moshe doing? He mentions in Devarim how we are to pray or say a bracha, a prayer, after we eat. But the four other books don't say this. This is a mitzvah. So what gives Moshe the authority to do this? And why are there new mitzvot? These mitzvot were given to Moshe at Mount Sinai. It just wasn't written down in the four books. Moshe just happens to write them down in Devarim. But all of Israel already knew these mitzvot because they were being taught through Torah Shel Peh, oral Torah, right? This is Mishnah Torah. So if you don't believe in oral Torah, you have to throw out the book of Devarim. Devarim is oral Torah. And anyways, we also are coming tomorrow to the 9th of Av, right? The 9th of Av. I may go back through chapter 1, but I want to talk about the 9 days and what is the source for Sinat? One sec, sorry guys. Sinat Chinam. Sorry. Sinat Chinam. What is the source for baseless hatred? So, in the Talmud, in Yuma Daf Tes, some of us have been studying Tractate Yoma with me. And in Tractate Yoma, it actually asks, why was the first temple destroyed? And it says, because of three iniquitous things that existed there: idolatry, immorality, and bloodshed. Okay, so three things: avodah zarah, murder, and adultery. And then number 2, what about the second Beis Hamikdash? Why was the second temple destroyed? I mean, it says, the Talmud actually says, we know that people occupied themselves with the Torah, the mitzvot, and acts of kindness. So why was it destroyed? The Talmud says, because of the baseless hatred that existed there. So the Gemara says it's because of Sinas Chinam, baseless hatred. Where does Sinas Chinam come from? That's the question. Where does it come from? What is the source? Okay. I mean, a Jew even hating another Jew. Why? And where is the source coming from? We got another guest coming in. So in Devarim, Moshe Rabbeinu, he gives a recap. Moshe Rabbeinu gives a recap in this Parsha, Devarim. He mentions many things. He mentions the Egel Zahav, the golden calf, and he mentions the sin of the Meraglim, the spies. Rosemary, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Welcome, glad to have you here.
Thank you.
And so Moshe in this Parsha, and actually the next couple Parshas, is actually doing a Musar. He's doing a Musar. Okay? And the problem is, we see what Moshe says here of the Meraglim, of the spies, and what the Torah says in Parsha Shalach, Bamidbar. Because what did I say about Devarim? Devarim is only recapping what has already happened. Okay? And if we look at the story of the spies in Devarim, and look at the story of the spies in the Bamidbar, we'll find there's differences. So if we go to Devarim chapter 1, verse 22, we'll take a look at this. In verse 122, it says, Vatik revun elai kulechem vatomeru nishlacha anashim lefanenu ve'yachperu lanu es haaretz ve'yashivu osanu davar es haderech asher na'ale ba ve'es he'arim asher navo alehen. All of you approached me and said, let us send men ahead of us and let them spy out the land and bring word back to us the road on which we should ascend and the cities to which we should come. And then look at verse 23. Vayitav be'enei hadavar. It says they turned, and the idea was good in my eyes. So Moshe says, the idea was good in my eyes. So I took from you 12 men, 1 man for each tribe. Verse 24. It says, they turned and ascended the mountain and came unto the valley of Eshcol and spied it out. Verse 25, they took in their hands from the fruit of the land and brought it down to us. They brought back word to us and said, good is the land that Hashem, our God, gives us. And verse 26, but you did not wish to ascend, and you rebelled against the word of Hashem, your God. And one more verse, verse 27, it says, Vate ragnu be'ha'alachechem v'tomeru be'shin'a Hashem osanu hotzi'anu me'eretz Mitzrayim leses osanu be'yad ha'emori lehash midenu. You slandered in your tents, Vate ragnu. You slandered in your tents. Because of Hashem's hatred for us, he did take us out of the land of Egypt to deliver us into the hand of the Amorite to destroy us. This is what they said. It says in verse 27, you slandered in your tents. You slandered. And what's even worse, you said that Hashem hates you. This is what they said. Shalach, Parsha Shalach, does not say any of that. Does not mention this. If we go to Bamidbar 19:14, so I'm going to kind of go back and forth with Parsha Shalach in Numbers 19:14 and Devarim chapter 1, because we're talking about the same events, but different words are being said. So in chapter 14 of verse 1, Perek Yud Daled Pasuk Aleph, it says, the entire assembly raised up and issued its voice, and the people wept that night. They raised their voices and they cried that night. And also, for those that have been studying the Gemara, we studied earlier Tanis a while back, and in Tanis it says, and Sota said the same thing in both places. They cried that night. They cried that night. And the Gemara says, Rabbah said in the name of our Yochanan, that day of the spies' return was the day before Tisha B'Av. HaKodesh Baruch Hu said to them, you wept a weeping without a cause. Therefore, I shall establish for you a weeping for generations on this day. It's actually pretty scary. The Gemara is saying they wept without a cause. So Hashem says, you want to cry? I'm going to give you something to cry about. Actually, even during these 9 days, I've been waking up a couple days during these 9 days with extreme sadness out of the blue, feeling like I need to do Teshuva right away. And I haven't been doing the greatest Teshuva this week, to be honest, but I've been waking up with this heavy sadness, just waking up and feeling the guilt and the shame that I need to do Teshuva. And I've been feeling like this. I really believe that this time is very powerful for me to even feel that myself. And so Hashem says, I'm going to give you a reason to cry. I'll make you cry for all your generations. They complain and cry, I will give you Tisha B'Av. This is what Hashem says. I'm going to give you a reason to cry. In Parsha Shalach, when they said we don't want to go, they gave a reason why. And they actually said in verse 28, Ephes ki az ha'am hayoshev be'eretz ve'ha'arim betzorot gedolot me'od v'gam yelidei ha'anach ra'inu sham. But the people that dwells in the land is powerful. The cities are fortified and very great. And we also saw their offspring of the giant. So they said they are very powerful there. They're too strong. The giants there. I can't go. In Devarim, it just says they don't want to go. It's one of the differences. Another difference in Shalach is in chapter 13, verse 26, 28, or in 26, it says the people, let's see, they went to Moshe in Numbers, they went to Moshe and Aaron. They went to complain to Moshe and Aaron. And where were Moshe and Aaron? They were at the Ohel Moed. It doesn't really say, but that's where they were. They were at the Tentum meeting. It doesn't say exactly where, but in Devarim chapter 1, verse 27, it says, you slandered in your tents, and all of you came to me. It doesn't say where they really went, but that's where they went. They went to the Ohel Moed. And another thing, in Shalach, in Parsha Shalach, they don't mention Hashem. They don't say anything about Hashem. But in Devarim, Moshe says, Hashem heard you. And how does he feel about this? They actually said, Hashem hates us. So why in Shalach does it not record how they feel Hashem hated them? So Moshe, what is the difference with Devarim and Parsha Shalach? Does anybody know any other difference here? About the crowd even of Devarim and the crowd of Israel in the book of Numbers. Well, Moshe in Devarim is talking to them at the end of 40 years in the wilderness. At the end of the 40 years in the wilderness. So who's he really talking to? He's talking to the entire generation. But this generation is not the generation before. These are the children of that generation that slandered and talked bad about the land. These are the children of the parents. Okay? So Moshe is actually talking to a whole new crowd almost. Emet, Shabbat Shalom. And so this crowd were the children of the parents. They're kids. And the children are basically all like, okay, our parents talked bad about the land. Our parents. So Emmett, just to catch you up, we're talking about the sin of the spies in Parsha Devarim and in Parsha Shalach. And what is the difference? There's differences in both parts. So the children say, okay, we're good. We're at the land. We didn't do that. We're good. We did a lot of good deeds. We came with you with Moshe. All of these things were really good. That was our parents. But they didn't do all good. So the Midrash says they were crying, the parents were crying like a dead relative that was in front of them. The parents. Why? The Midrash is hinting that the parents were worried about their kids. They almost had it in their mind that their children are dead. The children aren't going to make it. They're thinking they will die. They don't trust Hashem, and they're crying and weeping over their children. They're going to die. 40 years later, Moshe is telling the children the following message. Moshe says, your parents aren't here today because of the terrible sin of the Meraglim, of the spies. They're not here because of this. The kids are like, okay, we're not responsible. We didn't do that. We didn't make these decisions. We didn't make these choices. We're free. But Moshe Rabbeinu says, no, not so simple. You're not free. Parsha Shalach, your parents came to me. You children were brought out by your parents. Your parents were even feeding you the lies. They were feeding you that we're all doomed. You may not have been adults at this time, but you were there, and your parents showed you no trust in Hashem. Hashem took you out of Mitzrayim. He freed you from slavery. He split the sea for you. He fed you man. Your clothing never ran out. And you take everything for granted. Remember, we said in the beginning before this that people make their choices, but why do they make their choices? Are people really following God that claim to follow God? Some of us are on autopilot. We do the prayers, we do the mitzvot, and we just think everything's hunky-dory, that Hashem has just got us no matter what, that everything's smooth sailing. The children of Israel are like, and this generation are like, okay, we didn't do that. We're going in. But Moshe is reminding them, don't take anything for granted. Don't think. There's a lot of people right now with a lot of fear going over them right now. I mean, the world is being run by fear. Listening to the media, running by fear. I'm wondering, even believers in God, is Hashem really going to protect me in this time? I don't know. I think I'm doomed. You know, I may be a little troubled, a little scared of what's going on, but I know one thing, that I have mezuzahs on my door, and that I pray, we keep Shabbat, and I know, and I don't take anything for granted, that Hashem has protected me my whole life, even when I didn't even know he was there. He was there, and he's gotten me through everything. And I will not forget that. I will not say, well, what if I don't come out of this? What if this happens or that? Hashem will protect us. And this is the problem Moshe is saying. Not everything's fine. Look at all the things that Hashem has done for you. He didn't part the sea just for them. He parted the sea for us. We are coming out of Mitzrayim every day because Hashem is taking us out every day. And so we must not forget everything that Hashem has done for us. Many things in our lives. I'm sure every one of us have a story of how Hashem has pulled us through a crazy situation. And we can't forget that. We cannot forget that. And you know, Hashem did this for you. So what do you say? What did the children of Israel say? The sin of the spies? In Devarim 127, they said Hashem hates us. What are we going to do? This is what they said. Rashi says the opposite. Rashi says Hashem loves you, but you took his feelings and turned them around. And Moshe says you had a hatred towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and guess what? It was a baseless hatred. Sinat Chinam. Sinat Chinam. He gave you everything. And this is why Moshe says, you all came to me. Your parents told me you kids were, and they told me what your kids were saying. Moshe says Hashem loves you, but you had negative feelings to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Even the kids were being raised up in their parents' ways. And even believers in God, even some of us may have parents that are believers in God and may be delivering a wrong message, but Moshe is saying, it's you. I'm talking to you. You know, we're supposed to honor our mother and father, but also the Torah teaches if your father tells you to break the Shabbat, you keep the Shabbat. So Moshe says, yeah, okay, your parents did this, but you do not walk in those ways. Hashem loves you. And if you think you're going to walk into Eretz Israel just because, no. There's hatred in your heart. There's hatred in your heart. And this is the musar that Moshe is giving. Your sinas chinam, your baseless hatred. The Gemara asks, where is the sinas chinam that happened with the second temple, the Beis Hamikdash? Where did it come from? and so powerful that Hashem destroyed the Mikdash. Why does someone hate someone for no reason? And guess what the Torah is hinting at? The source of Sinat Chinam came from the Meraglim, from the spies. That is the source. Not appreciating the chesed that Hashem does for us. The Talmud says they were studying Torah. They were doing mitzvot and acts of kindness. But there was baseless hatred. They had baseless hatred. They did not have love for one another because they never listened to Hashem. And because they had baseless hatred against Hashem, this just trickled down to baseless hatred against your neighbor. Because if you can't have love for Hashem, how can you have love for man? And so this is the baseless hatred that happened in the second temple. This is the source. The sages say towards Hashem that that the baseless hatred was against Hashem, that it naturally would be against man as well. And we can't appreciate the chesed Hashem does for us. We won't appreciate the chesed people do for us. And so Hashem says, I'm going to destroy my house. I got to get out of here. I'm going to destroy it because I don't want to be around people who hate me. And so the end of Moshe's speech about the spies in Devarim 145, it says, then you retreated and wept before Hashem, but Hashem did not listen to your voice, and he did not hearken to you. You went back and cried, and Hashem did not listen to what? Your voice. Doesn't say about your cries. I didn't listen to your voice. Why voice? I was weeping. Hashem didn't hear my cries. Why does it say voice? There was a motive to what made me cry. A baseless motive. It wasn't a cry. It was nonsense. It was complaining, like a kid whining. Moshe would dignify what they were saying, and in Eka, Yirmiyah says in chapter 3, Hashem, I will not listen to you because you did not listen to me. It wasn't a baseless cry. It was baseless what you accused me of. They accused Hashem of falseness. And Moshe is saying, if you don't fix this, you're going to have something to cry about. Hashem says, I'm giving you Tisha B'Av. Some people say, do we really need to cry over the temple? The temple is a symbol of Hashem dwelling with us. The temple being destroyed, saying Hashem destroyed his house. He cannot reside here with hatred. So he destroyed the temple. And so how do we get it back? Hashem takes them out into exile. We talked about exile earlier. Hashem takes us out into exile. Hashem will be hidden, but his chesed is still there. That's the amazing thing, that even with the baseless hatred, even with us in exile, even with no temple, Hashem is such a Zaddik that he still supplies even the ungrateful with food. He still is there for them. When there's hatred against Hashem, he still provides for them. And Hashem is saying, do you want me or not? And this bringing us out into exile, all the crazy things, the darkness going in the world right now is really for good. it's really all for good, because Hashem is giving us the opportunity to do Teshuva, to realize the great miracles he did in our lives, that how he's giving us miracles every day, that we have a roof over our head, we have food, we get to study Torah on Zoom, we get to do all of these things. Hashem is so great and amazing. Even when we fall, Hashem is amazing. And the answer is, like I screamed in the 300 messages on Torah, Strictly Torah group, it's all about Teshuva. That is the key. We can't do one thing by ourselves. And the only way you can correct people and things in Israel with love is by Teshuva, because it starts with us and Hashem first, and then we work on each other. We can't work on each other unless we do Teshuva and appreciate Hashem, the Creator. And that is all I got. So yeah, feel free to comment. Emmett, yeah, man.
Devarim is only 1 month, right? There was like 39 years, or like just a 1 month it was about, right? The entire Torah, the book of Devarim.
A difference, right? Yeah. Yeah, they're going right into Israel now, right?
Right. It's just a month.
What? I don't, the volume's low. I don't know. Yeah, the volume's on. Yeah. What's interesting is Moshe is a Zaddik, and we see 36 days later he's going to die. The death of the Zaddik, and they're going to enter into the land with none other than Joshua or Yeshua. You know, coincidence? Yeshua bringing them into the land.
He lost a shin.
I know Emmett posted an amazing post the other day about the similarities with Joshua and Yeshua. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's actually mind blowing.
Yeah, Garments of Light. There's actually 3 volumes of that. I'll be getting those soon.
Wow.
Yet again, Emmett with the gems. I have those on order, so I'm very excited. 3 volumes.
I think
Wow.
the term Yeshua, he signifies, Joseph as Adik. He is with Moshe, like 40 days of fast. He's with Yehoshua, then the King David. So he combines all of them together, the way it acts. Like,
Yeah, I don't know if there's something with my computer, if it's low or if it's just your
No,
mic.
JJ is low. Yeah, he's low.
It's hard to
Yeah,
hear
well,
you,
hello.
JJ.
Can you guys hear me better? Or
I can hear you better now. It was hard hearing you.
Okay, I just kept my phone on the straight, so it couldn't pick up my voice because of the recording. Okay.
Yeah. So that's what I studied today. And yeah, tomorrow's Tisha B'Av. We should all be taking it seriously. Taking it seriously, praying, taking opportunity to do Teshuvah. I believe that this is a time where we really reach out to Hashem and take away that gevura and bring mercy into our lives. For sure. Anyway, I believe, because I believe actions are going to accelerate after this.
Bezrat Hashem.
Amen. Yeah.
Yosef, quickly, did you want to keep recording or?
No, I actually. Oh wait, I didn't. I thought I
we still
stopped
going, yeah.
recording.
Yeah, I just figured I'd remind you.